Thanks, Nate. I didn't intend it to be a tongue twister, but I guess it turned out that way. So yeah, my name is Jimmy Smith. I'm the SCM and Digital Analytics Manager for Hilti. For those of you who don't know who Hilti is, we're headquartered here in Plano, just in the Dallas area, just up the road. Hilti is a manufacturer of power tools, and they have other services and software for construction professionals. And so today I want to talk to you about something that in some regards is a really small and simple thing, but it's had a really big impact on our digital marketing efforts at Hilti, and that's how we've democratized digital analytics data with Google Data Studio. John Wanamaker was a pioneer in marketing and advertising. He opened one of the first department stores in Philadelphia in the 1800s. He had this pioneering concept of giving customers the ability to return items that they didn't want or didn't need or were defective. And it really was pioneering at the time. He was the first person to ever do a full-page newspaper ad. So he was really creative and forward-thinking in marketing and advertising. But he did have some issues that he dealt with. In fact, there's a famous saying, you may have heard of it. I remember hearing it when I was in grad school. And this is what he said. He said, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." And while funny, true in a lot of ways, especially at that time, not so much today. In fact, today in a lot of ways we have the complete opposite problem. John Wanamaker dealt with a dearth of data. He didn't know what was effective, what was working, what wasn't. Today, we're practically drowning in data. We have web analytics data. We have social media data. We have customer data, purchasing data. You name it. We have so much data, we're practically drowning in it. And a lot of companies are drowning in it. In fact, I saw this survey. It's from 2017. But they asked about the analytical maturity of organizations. 13% of companies, and I'm a very data-driven guy, so this is kind of hard for me to believe, but 13% of companies don't even know where their marketing data lives, and thus they're not leveraging it at all. Another 42% of companies only have very basic rudimentary reporting on their marketing activities. And as you can see, it gets more mature from there. But if you combine those first two, that's 55% of companies that are leveraging little or no marketing data. And so today I want to tell you about how some of the things we've done at Hilti to democratize that web analytics data. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, democratize, huh? What does this have to do with democracy? Well, I love our democracy. I'm glad we can vote and so forth. But I'm talking about the second definition of democratize, and that is to make something accessible to everyone. Particularly, my objective has always been to get the data in the hands of the decision makers, those frontline marketers who really need and can use the data. And while we're defining things, I should probably also define, there it goes, Google Data Studio. It's a relatively new product, but it's very cool, and I'm surprised at how many marketers still don't know about it. So it was introduced in 2016 in a beta format. In 2018, so just a year ago, it came out of beta. It's a data visualization tool similar to Tableau or maybe Power BI. It can be used to create dashboards and reports and so forth. Like many or most Google products, it's free to use. And you can pull in all kinds of data sources. You can pull in data from just about any Google product you can think of: Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Search Console, Google Sheets. But you can also bring in databases like BigQuery, MySQL, flat files, CSV files, social media data, et cetera, et cetera. So that's Data Studio. Now, just as a disclaimer, this is not paid advertisement for Google. I don't work for Google. I have no affiliation with Google except as an end user of their products. And this isn't going to be a step-by-step either. That would bore you. You can go online, you can Google or go to YouTube and search for videos of how to create step-by-step how to create some great looking dashboards and reports in Data Studio. But what I do want to share with you today is a story of how this has helped Hilti in our marketing efforts and helped us to be more data-driven and more effective in our marketing efforts, and hopefully give you some ideas of how you might be able to use Data Studio in your work. So, as I mentioned, I'm a very data-driven person. I just have an analytical mindset. And I've kind of been on this quest throughout my career to help marketing, campaigns, and organizations be more data-driven. And I started out my career in a very data-driven organization, FedEx. If any of you know them or know about them, very analytical company, very data-driven, and it was a pleasure to work there, and I really learned some great best practices. But I know not all companies are so data-driven. In fact, a few years after I was at FedEx, I found myself at a rather large nonprofit organization, and bless their hearts, they were not very data-driven. They had a lot of websites and had a lot of content, but what I found when I went to this organization, and I was in charge of the web analytics there, was that very few people were using the web analytics. They had Omniture at the time, which has now been purchased by Adobe, so it's Adobe Analytics. So they had Omniture, but it was very obvious that hardly anyone was logging in and looking at the data and using it. There were some reports going around, but not much. And so I kind of set out to change this. I started doing trainings. I started making reports and putting them out. I started an internal blog where I talked about the web analytics data. And for 3 years, I made this really hard, concerted effort to get the marketing organization to be more data-driven and to use the web analytics. And one day, like I said, after about 3 years, I was looking at the login data for the Omniture, and what I found was that only 40% of people who had access to the web analytics data were actually logging in the last 6 months. And I guarantee this was a huge improvement of where it had been before. And only 11% of people were logging in on a monthly basis. And I'm guessing if you were to look at your logins to your company's web analytics, you might see something similar to that. 4 years ago, I started working for Hilti. And our digital marketing department there, we publish over 50 landing pages a month. We have landing pages that serve functions on education, awareness, technical documentation, supporting our various marketing activities and so forth. And I won't go into the details, but there were, as I dove into the data, clear opportunities to improve engagement rates, such as improving conversion rates, reducing bounce rates, and so forth. And so once again, I set about to see what I could do to change that environment at Hilti, to get us to look at the data, to use it to improve our marketing campaigns. And it was, and has been for the last 4 years, an up and down journey, back and forth, with some successes and some not so successful efforts. But when I started at Hilti, I noticed they had a very robust intranet based on Microsoft SharePoint, as a lot of companies do, and I thought I should try publishing the digital analytics reports through SharePoint. And that didn't ever really get traction. I tried it for about a year. I was publishing reports. I was sharing them with colleagues and so forth. But there were issues with, it wasn't very flexible, the reports I could produce, and various issues. It never got traction. So the next thing I tried was, similar to my previous company, doing training on Google Analytics. Google Analytics has great reporting capabilities. In theory, it's designed for just about any marketer, whether you're technically savvy or not, to go in and get reports. And so I've started doing training and trying to get people to use the Google Analytics. That's had some success, and I still do that, but there are always issues with, there's access issues, there's reporting flexibility issues. If you've gone into Google Analytics, you know you're kind of constrained to these like 3-column format, and people have to know where reports are and they have to drill down, and it can be really hard to find. I mean, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of reports in Google Analytics, and it's hard for people to find what they're looking for. So we saw some success there, and I continued to do that, but it wasn't the success I was hoping for. So the next thing I tried was doing monthly reports through PowerPoint, which wasn't my first inclination, but the corporate culture within Hilti kind of supported that. What I found was my boss was asking for slides on a monthly basis, and I said, well, why don't I just put everything you kind of asked from time to time into one monthly report in PowerPoint, and I started doing that, and it's actually had some success, and I actually still do that on a monthly basis. The problem is not very scalable, and it's not exactly what I was looking for in terms of campaign-specific data. I could provide, high-level e-commerce data for our website, or sessions to our site, or email data, or other digital analytics in a monthly format. But it really wasn't what I was looking for in terms of getting data into the hands of the marketers. So the next thing I tried was Power BI. Power BI is a Microsoft product. If you've ever used it, it's really powerful. It produces beautiful reports, and I liked it from the moment I used it. But once again, I ran into access issues. I would produce these great reports, and I'd send them out, and our salespeople and our other marketers couldn't access them, and so it never got traction for that reason either. I haven't given up entirely on Power BI. More and more people in our organization are using it. And I may revisit it at some point. But when I tried it a year or two ago, it didn't get much traction. Then about a year and a half ago, I started using Data Studio. And I didn't realize, like I said, what a simple thing it would be, but how powerful it could be. It was scalable and flexible and easily shareable. And I produced my first report in Google Data Studio. It was a landing page report, and I sent it out to my colleagues, and this amazing thing happened. They actually started using it, looking at it. They started asking me questions about it and asking for enhancements to the report, and I would walk by colleagues' desks, and I would see the report up on their computer screen that I had sent, and I knew I was onto something with Data Studio. So I'll just point out some of the features of Data Studio and why I think it really took hold at Hilti. First is the flexibility in design and layout. When you log into Data Studio, this is the first screen you'll see, and it just has these templates that you can choose from, and they're beautiful. You can start from scratch, as I usually do, and build your own reports. And there's just a lot of flexibility in design, and you can put your own color scheme and logo and so forth, and you can make them look great. Interactive elements and controls make the Data Studio reports really powerful and helpful. These they allow you to drill down into different elements of the report, or let you provide interactive elements for the end user of the report to drill down. You can have filter controls so they can see just their marketing campaign, or just the page they're interested in, or just certain aspects of the report that they're interested in. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then the sharing and ease of access is another selling point that I think helped the Data Studio reports really get traction. Most everybody is always logged in to their Google account on Chrome, and it was just a piece of cake for people to access the reports, or for me to share with them, and for them to get the reports they wanted. And of course, you can lock them down too, and just share reports with the people you want, or make them wide open for everyone who has the URL to go to the report. So this is the first Data Studio report I created for Hilti a year and a half ago. I apologize, it's kind of ugly. It's got some really good data, and I tried to put everything about what I would want to know about a landing page on one page here, just be a good summary. And so let me take you through some of the elements of it. So the first thing is this filter control. It's a drop-down menu. You click on it, and you can select any page on Hilti.com, the end user can, and then the report will refresh, and they can get great data on how that page is performing. So then at the top left there, you got the data selector, or excuse me, the date range selector. So the default's 28 days on these reports, but you can make the default anything you want, and the end user can select any date range they want. Then at the top right, I have some common page metrics, page views, users, call to action events, so forth. Then I have a trend of how page views for that page are trending. And again, it's going to be whatever date range the end user selects. I have some traffic source data. And then I have page views, time on page, exit, and bounce rate, and page value broken down by page title. Now, many of you may know in an ideal world there'd be one page title for one page URL. Oftentimes that's not the case. So if you select one URL, it's going to show you all the different page titles and those metrics for the page titles. Previous page path, where they were on before they came to the page in question. I would love to put next page on here. There's no automated dynamic way to do that right now in Data Studio. I search and search, and it's just not possible right now. Hopefully it will be possible someday to have the next page path as well. Call to actions that people click, like you. On our landing pages, we have one primary call to action and generally several secondary or tertiary calls to action, so I can see what people are clicking on the page, what device they're using there at the bottom left, and geolocation on the bottom right. And there in the bottom middle is some SEO data. Like I said, I wanted this to be one-page summary of how the page is performing, so I wanted to include SEO data. Data Studio lets you pull in multiple data sources, so I'm pulling from Google Analytics as well as Google Search Console to pull in the SEO keyword data, what keywords this page is ranking for. And so, again, I created this, I sent it out, and it quickly gained popularity, and it was a one-page summary of how each page was performing. You could drill down into more detail. It was easy to share, easy to access. It gave great insights about how to improve a page, and I could, behind the scenes, improve this report without changing the URL I shared with all my colleagues. And in fact, that's what I did. Because immediately, like I said, my colleagues were using this and asking for improvements. So this is what it looks like today. So let me tell you about a few improvements I've made to this landing page report. The first thing I did was I removed the Google Search Console data. The reason is, though you can combine multiple data sources, I found the reports loaded super slow when it's combining two different data sources. So I took the Google Search Console data out and just focused on Google Analytics data. One of the next things my colleagues asked was, is there a way to share this report with our colleagues in Europe? Hilti's an international company. We have a big presence in Europe, and we wanted to share this with our friends in Germany and France and so forth. And the way we have our Google Analytics data set up is for each country website is a separate Google Analytics property. And so you can put in a filter element, which I've done there at the top left, so that the end user can select their country website. And then when they select the page drop-down menu, they're only going to see pages from their site. So if the end user selects France, they'll just see the French pages and so forth. And with the SEO keyword data gone, I had some room, so I put page scroll depth data on here. That's not tracked by default in Google Analytics, but it's a custom event that Hilti has programmed into our website, so we know how far people are scrolling down our pages. And so I put that on there. I thought it was a good metric to see how people are engaged with the page. I should also mention I've created several other kind of alternate versions of the landing page report. At the top of every Data Studio report, you're going to see this make a copy of this report button. So it's a piece of cake to create a copy. One of the things that was requested was, can you make a version of this report that keys off the page title instead of the URL? The URL is kind of cryptic sometimes. And so I made a version that just keyed off page title. And then one day I was reviewing this report with a colleague, and he said, hey, can we take Hilti employees out? We use our own website a lot, our salespeople do, and he wanted to remove the Hilti traffic, and we have a way to do that. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So I created an alternate version of this report that excludes Hilti employees. And then one day I was reviewing this report, and we were discussing a page that had a video as the major call to action, and I realized, oh, well, I don't have our video metrics on here, so I made a separate version of the report that gives video metrics, how many video plays and how long people are watching the videos. Other reports I've created in Data Studio is an SEO report. I've actually created a lot of SEO reports in Data Studio. This is an example of one. It's similar to the landing page report in that at the top there's a drop-down menu where the end user can select a page so they can see the SEO performance of any given page on our site, and it has data, ranking data, and click-through data, and so forth. And I have it broken down by branded versus non-branded keywords, because that's a big deal for us. We, like probably many of you, run a lot of email campaigns. And this was a natural use for Data Studio to create a one single report that was scalable so that our email marketing team can see how their email campaigns are doing. So again, I have a drop-down menu that lets our email team select the email campaign they're interested in. They select that email campaign. The report refreshes and tells them how the email campaign is doing. It has traffic data. It also has sales data, how many people are ordering based on an email campaign, what products they're buying, and so forth. And this is page 2 of the email traffic report. Though one of the things I've really liked about Data Studio is to be able to build a one-page kind of summary report. You can have multiple pages in Data Studio. I don't know what the limit is, but you can have lots of pages, and this is an example of a multi-page report that I made in Data Studio. And then we have lots of campaigns that we run. This is an example of a campaign we ran this past summer for our chemical anchors. In the Hilti world, when we talk about anchors, we're not talking about boat anchors, we're talking about concrete anchors that people use in construction applications. So our chemical anchors are epoxy or kind of glue anchors. And we had a campaign that we ran this summer, and so I put together this one-page summary of how that campaign is performing. And this one is how that campaign's performing on the website, and this is how the campaign's performing from an SEO perspective. One of the goals of the campaign was to improve SEO. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, great, Jimmy, so you've democratized the web analytics data, you've found a way to get that data into the hands of the marketers and the marketing team. Has it really helped your engagement rates? Because that was one of the issues we noticed at the beginning. And the answer is a definitive yes. Now, I'm not going to say that using Data Studio takes credit for all the gain here, but in the past year, our bounce rates have been cut in half, and our conversion rates have more than doubled. And as you can see, it all started right around that time when we started to use Data Studio. Now, of course, we're always optimizing. We've made a lot of changes to our process, and we're going to keep making changes to make our landing pages better, more engaging, and more effective. But Data Studio has been a huge help to us and been a huge part of the equation in improving these engagement rates. And just as I wrap up here, I want to bring you back to where we started, drowning in data, as a lot of us are. I was reading this LinkedIn article just about a month ago as I was preparing this presentation, and I thought the article did a great job of explaining how digital marketers are drowning in data. And what I really found interesting was some of the pain points it pointed out are the things we've talked about here today that Google Data Studio can help overcome. This is what the LinkedIn article said. It said, we found that digital marketers are struggling to calculate their impact, share that impact with key stakeholders, and market that impact across their organizations. And all three of those things can be overcome with what we've talked about today with Data Studio. And I think what you'll find is as you do that, take these steps, instead of drowning in data, you'll be riding the data-driven wave. And that's all I have. Thank you.